The Force bound all living things together in this galaxy. Jedi taught that truth is doctrine. Sith twisted it into dogma, but nowhere in its vast, star-choked expanse did it account for what came next. There was no hyperspace signature, no warning flare on Imperial scanners, no ripple that any astromech could quantify. Something fell into the galaxy instead, ripping through the void between stars like a wound being torn open by dying light. Far above an outer rim world, forgotten by most charts, space itself warped. A collapsing star in another universe screamed its final death cry, and a man tried to save it. He had done so before, contained implosions, redirected cosmic annihilation, held together realities that should have torn themselves apart. But this time, the physics betrayed him. The star's death intersected with something else, something older, something alive. A force nexus. The rupture snapped shut behind him. Superman hit atmosphere like a meteor. The night sky over the mining world of Carthax ignited. Clouds boiled into incandescent fire as his body punched through them, trailing a sonic thunderclap that shattered transparisteel windows across the settlement below. Civilians looked up from rusted walkways and slag pits just in time to see the heavens fall. He struck the desert plateau beyond the city with enough force to crater the stone. Shockwaves rippled outward, toppling comm towers and sending plumes of ash skyward. For a long moment, the world was silent. Then, the dust began to settle. Superman rose slowly from the impact site. His cape smoldered at the edges. The once familiar yellow sun symbol dulled beneath layers of gray grit. He inhaled, expecting the comforting rush of solar energy that usually followed catastrophe. It came, but weaker, thinner, like breathing air at the top of a mountain. He frowned. The sky above was wrong. Two suns hung there, not the steady yellow beacon he knew, but twin stars of uneven hue. One burned pale and distant. The other glowed harsh and orange, radiating heat without the precise spectrum his cells instinctively craved. Power trickled into him, not surged. Superman steadied himself and extended his senses. What he felt was not emptiness. It was pressure. The air itself hummed with something unseen. Not radiation, not magnetism. It pressed against his mind and emotions alike, brushing against thoughts with curious insistence. Anger lingered here, fear, desperation. A galaxy soaked in suffering. This isn't Earth, he said quietly. The realization didn't frighten him, but it unsettled him. He had crossed dimensions before. This felt different. The laws of reality weren't broken here. They were rewritten. His enhanced hearing caught distant sounds, engines whining, voices shouting in languages he didn't recognize but somehow understood. He turned toward the city. Carthax was a scar on the planet's surface. Towers of scrap metal rose around deep mining pits, where enslaved laborers hauled refined ore under the watch of armed guards. Banners bearing a black and white insignia snapped in the hot wind. Stormtroopers patrolled the streets, plastoid armor gleaming beneath the suns. Superman hovered above the outskirts, unseen. He watched. Workers collapsed from exhaustion. A trooper struck one with the butt of his blaster, laughing as others were forced to drag the fallen man away. A child too young, malnourished, stared up at the soldiers with hollow eyes. Superman's jaw tightened. On his world, he would have intervened instantly, stopped the violence, offered hope. But this galaxy felt fragile. Oppression was systemic here, not localized. Remove one tyrant and another filled the void. Still, suffering was suffering. He descended quietly into an alley between rusted buildings, boots touching ground without a sound. His presence immediately drew attention. Blasters snapped up. Voices barked orders. Halt. Identify yourself. Superman raised his hand slowly, not in surrender, but in calm. My name is Clark, he said evenly. I don't want trouble. The troopers exchanged glances. One laughed. You don't get to decide that. The blaster fired. Superman barely flinched as the red bolt struck his chest and dissipated harmlessly against his skin. The soldiers froze. He took a step forward. The second shot never landed. He moved faster than the trooper's eyes could track, disarming one, shattering another's weapon with controlled precision. He didn't strike flesh, didn't break bones. He disabled, efficient, restrained. Within seconds, the alley was silent except for labored breathing. The trooper stared at him in terror. Superman looked down at his hands. He felt it then, a surge not of strength, but of approval. Something in the air responded to his dominance. The pressure he'd sensed earlier swelled briefly, like a current flowing in the direction of violence. He stepped back, unsettled. "That wasn't me," he muttered. Before he could consider further, repulsor engines screamed overhead. A patrol skiff hovered into view, weapons charging. Civilians scattered as alarms blared across the district. Superman looked up. This time, he didn't wait. He leapt skyward, intercepting the skiff mid-air. His grip crushed its engine housing, forcing it to spiral harmlessly into an empty slag pit. He hovered above the street, cape snapping behind him, fully visible now. The reaction was immediate. Kneeling, some dropped to their knees in awe. Others backed away in fear. Whispers spread like wildfire. A god. A demon. A weapon. Superman landed slowly, trying to project calm. "I'm not here to rule you," he said, voice carrying across the square. "I'm here to stop people from being hurt." A Hutt Syndicate overseer, fat, armored, cruel-eyed, slithered forward, flanked by mercenaries. "You destroyed Imperial property," the overseer sneered. "That brings consequences." Superman met his gaze. "So does slavery." He moved before they could react. Chains snapped, cages folded like paper. Mercenaries were disarmed and pinned without lethal force. The overseer tried to flee. Superman caught him. The pressure surged again, this time stronger. The crowd roared. He felt it feed into him, not corrupting, not painful, empowering. Anger sharpened his focus. Righteous fury amplified his strength beyond its already staggering baseline. Superman released the overseer and took a step back, heart pounding. Power had always come from the sun, from discipline, from restraint. This was different. This galaxy rewarded anger. Sirens wailed in the distance, Imperial reinforcements inbound. Superman looked at the freed workers, at the fear and hope warring in their eyes. He could stay, fight, tear the system down piece by piece. Or he could leave before becoming something this galaxy demanded rather than deserved. He chose neither. He lifted into the air, hovering above them all. "You're free," he said. "For now, don't waste it." Then he vanished into the sky just as TIE fighters screamed overhead. Far away, aboard a Star Destroyer, sensors finally registered the anomaly. And somewhere deeper still, a presence in black armor paused, feeling something shift in the balance. Not light. Not dark, but potential. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The deserts of Carthax stretched endlessly beneath Superman as he flew low, following the curve of the planet until the city's corroded skyline vanished behind him. Wind tore at his cape, carrying the acrid scent of burned fuel, scorched metal, and something else to spare, baked so deeply into the world that it felt inseparable from the soil itself. He slowed, then stopped mid-air. Something was wrong. Not danger, not pursuit. Hunger. It gnawed at him subtly, not in his stomach, but deeper at the cellular level. He closed his eyes and focused, attuning himself to the radiation pouring down from the twin suns. The energy sustained him, yes, but inefficiently. The spectrum was off. His body compensated automatically, but the drain was real. Prolonged exertion here would cost him. That knowledge alone should have been manageable. What unsettled him more was the echo he still felt from the city. The anger. When he'd crushed the slavers' chains, when the crowd had cheered, something in the air had answered, not like applause, like resonance, as if the galaxy itself leaned closer when he acted with force. He exhaled slowly and continued on. Carthax's outer territories were a lawless sprawl of wreckage and forgotten settlements, where the Empire's reach thinned and criminal syndicates filled the void. That was where he found them. The freighter was ancient, its hull scarred by blaster fire and patchwork repairs. It sat half-buried in a canyon, cargo ramp lowered, engines cold. Around it moved figures with the cautious efficiency of people accustomed to violence. Smugglers. Superman hovered above a nearby ridge, listening. "I'm telling you, that thing in the city wasn't Imperial," a woman said. Her voice carried the clipped confidence of someone who'd survived long enough to know when to run. "Troopers don't bounce blaster fire like that." "Doesn't matter what it was," another replied. "Empire's gonna lock this rock down. We take the spice shipment and move now, or we don't move at all." Spice. Superman's jaw tightened. He'd learned quickly that some words carried universal weight across civilizations. Exploitation wore different names, but the result was always the same. He descended openly this time, landing a short distance from the group. Hands flew to weapons. "Easy," he said, palms raised slightly. "I'm not here for your cargo." A Twi'lek man squinted at him. "You're the one from the city." Superman nodded. "Those people were enslaved." The woman stepped forward, blaster still trained on him. "So are half the Outer Rim. You planning to fix all that?" "I plan to stop what I can," he replied honestly. A dry laugh rippled through the group. "Hero types get eaten alive out here," the Twi'lek said. "Empire doesn't care. Hutts don't care. You knock one chain loose, 3 more snap tight somewhere else." Superman met his gaze. "Then why are you smuggling spice instead of joining them?" Silence followed. Finally, the woman lowered her blaster just a fraction. Because surviving doesn't always mean choosing the least evil, sometimes it means choosing the one that doesn't kill you today. Her name was Ressa Vale, former Imperial Logistics Officer, defected after watching an entire mining colony purged for missed quotas. Now she ran cargo for whoever paid enough to keep her ship flying. They invited him aboard. The freighter's interior smelled of recycled air and old oil. Dim lighting revealed crates stacked high, some marked with chemical warnings, others unmarked entirely. Superman's X-ray vision pierced them effortlessly. Weapons, stimulants, people. He stiffened. "You said spice," he said quietly. Ressa followed his gaze and swore under her breath. "That wasn't supposed to be in this shipment. You're transporting slaves." "We're transporting cargo," she snapped, then hesitated. "Look, we don't open sealed contracts. If we did, we'd be dead." Superman closed his eyes. On Earth, this would be simple. Break the chains. Arrest the guilty. Trust the system to hold. There was no system here. He looked at the sealed cryopods, at the faint life signs within. Weak, sedated, alive. The pressure returned. It whispered now, not in words, but in sensation. A promise of efficiency. End the smugglers. Destroy the ship. Remove the problem completely. His fists clenched. "No," he said aloud. Ressa frowned. "What?" "Nothing." He looked at her. "Where are you delivering them?" She hesitated. "A transfer station near the Cathal Rift. Black Sun territory?" Superman nodded. "You're not going." Her crew stiffened. "Lady, you don't get to." The deck shuddered as Superman placed a hand on the bulkhead. Metal groaned, not from force, but from intent. He hadn't crushed it, just reminded them he could. "I'm not threatening you," he said calmly. "I'm offering you a choice." Ressa studied him, eyes sharp. "You let us walk away?" "You help me get them somewhere safe," he replied. "And you walk away cleaner than you came in. Empire will hunt us." "They already are." Silence stretched. Finally, she exhaled. "Fine, one run. Then we disappear." They rerouted. The transfer took hours. Superman escorted the pods personally, flying ahead of the freighter, clearing a hidden canyon where the refugees could be awakened safely. He worked methodically, gently, carrying each pod as if it were made of glass. Each rescue dulled the pressure, not erased it, but quieted it. That frightened him more than the power surge had. Ressa watched from the ramp as the last refugee was freed. "You're different," she said. "Not force-sensitive, but the galaxy's reacting to you anyway." Superman looked toward the stars. "On my world, power exists to protect." She smirked sadly. "Here, power exists to control." Imperial ships dropped out of hyperspace moments later. TIE fighters screamed overhead. A Star Destroyer loomed like a blade against the sky. Superman stepped forward. "I'll distract them," he said. "You'll die," Ressa replied flatly. He smiled faintly. "I won't." He launched skyward, drawing fire instantly. Turbo lasers streaked past him, close enough to feel the heat. He weaved through them, fast but not reckless. Each maneuver cost him energy. He could end this in seconds. Rip the destroyer apart. Silence the guns. Prove a point. The pressure surged eagerly. Superman slowed. He diverted, pulling the fighters away instead, leading them on a chase across the upper atmosphere. Blaster fire filled the sky, but none landed cleanly. Eventually, the TIEs fell back, unable to keep pace. When he returned hours later, the freighter was gone. Good. He hovered alone beneath unfamiliar stars. He had saved lives today, and learned something far more dangerous. In this galaxy, restraint was a weakness the dark side eagerly corrected. Somewhere far away, Darth Vader turned from a viewport. interest sharpening behind his mask. The hunt had begun. The first Imperial report classified the incident on Carthax as a data corruption error. Stormtroopers missing, patrol skiffs destroyed, slave pens emptied without evidence of sabotage or explosives. Surveillance footage showed nothing but static distortions and shadows moving too fast for frame capture. The local Moff, desperate to avoid scrutiny, blamed rebel interference and filed the paperwork accordingly. That explanation lasted less than 6 hours. A second report arrived from a refueling outpost 3 systems away. An Imperial Customs corvette disabled without hull breach. Its reactor shut down with surgical precision. Crew found alive terrified, shaken, and unanimous in their testimony. It wasn't a ship. The third report came from the edge of the mid-rim. A convoy carrying restricted materials vanished in transit. No hyperspace debris, no distress signal, just a final sensor reading showing a single mass-matching no known vessel moving outside standard propulsion parameters. That one reached the Executor. Aboard the Superstar Destroyer, Darth Vader stood motionless on the command bridge, black armor reflecting the cold glow of holographic projections. Officers spoke carefully, fear threading every word. They did not need to look at him to feel his attention tighten around them like a vice. "Replay it," Vader said. The hologram flickered to life. A grainy image resolved into a frozen moment. A crimson blaster bolt suspended mid-air, bent slightly as if the laws governing it had briefly reconsidered their obligations. Beyond it stood a figure humanoid, tall, cloaked in red and blue, cape flowing in a vacuum where no wind should exist. The bolt vanished. The figure moved. The recording ended. Silence claimed the bridge. "This presence," Vader said slowly, "is not force-sensitive." An officer swallowed. "Then, how?" "Power," Vader interrupted, "does not require the Force to be shaped by it." He turned away from the hologram, gazing into the stars. Somewhere out there, something had entered his domain without permission, something powerful enough to dismantle Imperial assets and walk away, and something that made the dark side stir. "Dispatch the Inquisitorius," Vader ordered. "I want confirmation, not conjecture." "Yes, my lord." The hunt widened. Superman felt it before he saw them. A ripple, subtle but unmistakable. The same pressure he'd sensed on Carthax returned, but this time it carried intent. Focused, predatory. He was drifting above a gas giant's rings, absorbing what little energy the distant sun provided, when his enhanced hearing caught the whine of engines slipping out of hyperspace. He turned as 3 sleek black ships emerged, angular and unfamiliar, their silhouettes sharp against the planet's swirling clouds. They didn't fire. Instead, one broadcast a signal. Unknown entity. A calm, distorted voice intoned, "You are interfering with Imperial operations. Power down and prepare for inspection." Superman frowned. "I'm not a ship," he replied, broadcasting back. A pause. Then laughter soft, amused. "So we sense correctly," the voice said. "You are alive." The ships spread out, circling him. Superman held position, hands at his sides. He could dismantle them in seconds. He chose not to. "I don't want conflict," he said, "but I won't submit to an empire that enslaves worlds." The pressure surged. One of the ships lunged forward without warning. A beam, not blaster fire, but something colder washed over him. It wasn't physical pain that followed, but disorientation. His senses warped. Gravity twisted. For a heartbeat, his body hesitated, uncertain how to respond. Superman grunted, stabilizing himself. The beam ceased. "Interesting," the voice said. "Your power resists the Force." 3 figures emerged from the ships, leaping into open space without suits, cloaked in dark armor. Red blades ignited with familiar, menacing hums. Inquisitors. Superman's eyes narrowed. "You can breathe out here?" One tilted her head. "The Force provides." They attacked as one. Superman reacted instantly, dodging the first blade, countering the second with a flick of his wrist that sent its wielder tumbling backward. The third caught him across the shoulder. Sparks flew as the lightsaber scraped harmlessly against his skin. He stared at the mark. The suit was scorched. His skin beneath was warm. Not cut. The Inquisitors hesitated. Then they adapted. The Force crashed against him like a wave. Telekinetic pressure slammed into his chest, pinning him in place. His muscles strained not against weight, but against will. He pushed back, raw strength meeting invisible hands. The pressure responded. It fed. Anger flared at the ambush, at the Empire, at the endless cycle of control and fear. Heat vision flared instinctively, forcing the Inquisitors to scatter. Superman broke free and moved. He disarmed one with a precise strike, shattering her saber hilt. Another he caught mid-lunge, gripping her wrist and gently but firmly crushing the weapon from her grasp. The third screamed and unleashed a torrent of force lightning. It struck Superman squarely. Pain lanced through him, not crippling, but real. His muscles spasmed. His vision flared white. The pressure surged violently, roaring approval. He could end this. He felt it with terrifying clarity. The anger amplified his strength. The lightning hurt, but it also sharpened him, focused him. He grabbed the Inquisitor mid-attack, lightning crawling harmlessly over his arms. Her eyes widened in terror. "Stop," he said. She didn't. Something snapped. Superman slammed her into the hull of her ship hard enough to crater Durasteel. The vessel buckled, systems failing instantly. He released her, and she drifted unconscious into space until he caught her again, holding her gently. Silence followed. The other Inquisitors hovered at a distance, weapons lowered. Superman looked at the one in his arms. He hadn't meant to hit her that hard. The pressure ebbed, leaving behind something cold and heavy. "You don't have to do this," he said to the others. "Walk away." They retreated not in fear, but calculation. This was beyond them. The report reached Vader within the hour. An Imperial ship crippled. An Inquisitor defeated. No casualties but unmistakable escalation. Vader's grip tightened on the railing. He held back, Vader murmured. That is his weakness. The Emperor's presence brushed his mind, cold and curious. "Bring him to me." Vader bowed his head. "Yes, my master?" Superman watched the stars drift past as he flew, unease settling deeper than exhaustion. His body would recover, his power would adapt. But the temptation lingered. This galaxy rewarded domination, encouraged decisive, overwhelming force. Every time he gave in, even slightly, it made him more effective. And one day soon, someone would force him to choose efficiency over mercy. He didn't know yet which path he would take, but the Empire had noticed him, and the dark side was learning his name. The Inquisitorius did not fear death. They feared irrelevance. That truth pulsed through the Force as the surviving Inquisitors withdrew, their damaged ships limping back toward Imperial space. Each of them felt it the disturbance that did not behave like the light or the dark, yet bent both around itself. This was not a Jedi survivor clinging to old dogma, not a rogue Sith apprentice hungry for power. This was something else, something the Force did not command. Within hours, the hunt intensified. Across hidden fortresses and forgotten moons, dark-robed figures gathered in meditation chambers, carved from obsidian and bone. Red lightsaber crystals hummed softly, resonating not with anger alone, but with uncertainty. They reached outward together, casting wide nets through the Force, searching not for a presence, but for an absence where something immense should have been. They found him, not as a beacon, as a gravity well. Superman felt it while drifting through hyperspace lanes he hadn't meant to enter. He had been flying blind for hours, moving system to system, avoiding populated worlds where his presence would draw attention. The stars blurred past as his speed increased fast, but not reckless. He couldn't risk exhausting himself under these unfamiliar suns. Then the sensation hit him, not pressure this time, a pull. He slowed, hovering in open space. His senses sharpened, scanning in every direction. No ships, no weapons fire, no immediate threat. But the Force, whatever it was, curved around him here, like standing at the center of a storm that hadn't yet broken. A whisper brushed his thoughts. Not words. Judgment. He turned just as a ring of crimson ignited around him. 6 Inquisitors emerged from stealth fields, their ships hanging back as they advanced through open space, cloaks billowing unnaturally. Their armor bore markings older than the Empire sigils repurposed from fallen orders, twisted into symbols of obedience. They didn't attack. Instead, they circled him slowly, studying. "You do not belong," one said, voice amplified by helmet vocoders. "Yet the Force bends to accommodate you." Superman's eyes flicked from blade to blade. "I'm not trying to disrupt anything." Another laughed. "Everything disrupts something." The pressure returned not as a wave, but as threads. Fine, invasive strands probing his emotional state, testing reactions. He felt memories surface unbidden. Earth, Metropolis, the sound of collapsing steel, the faces he hadn't saved. Anger stirred. The threads tightened. Superman clenched his fists and forced himself to breathe. "No," he said firmly. "Get out of my head." The Inquisitors recoiled slightly, not from fear, but surprise. "You resist instinctively," one murmured. "You have never been trained." Superman drifted backward, keeping distance. "You're not peacekeepers. You hunt." "We preserve order," another replied. "And you threaten it." They attacked without warning. This time, they coordinated. Force barriers snapped into place as two lunged, while the others unleashed telekinetic assaults meant not to crush him, but to redirect him. Space twisted around his body as vectors shifted unpredictably. His balance faltered. Superman adapted instantly, compensating with raw strength and flight control. He dodged one blade, blocked another with his forearm, heat vision flaring just enough to force distance without lethal force. But they learned fast. Force lightning lashed out again, not to harm, but to provoke. It scraped across his skin, pain blooming sharper than before. He gritted his teeth, holding back. The pressure swelled greedily. "Feel it," one Inquisitor urged. "Your power responds to conflict, to certainty." Superman roared not in rage, but frustration and surged forward. He disarmed two Inquisitors in rapid succession, tearing sabers from their grips and hurling them into the void. He struck another with controlled force, sending her spinning unconscious into space before catching her again. But the last three changed tactics. They stopped attacking. Instead, they knelt. The force surged violently. Superman froze, heart pounding. "What are you doing?" he demanded. The lead Inquisitor looked up at him, visor glowing faintly. "Submitting." The pressure spiked. Superman staggered, not physically, but mentally. The sensation was overwhelming, intoxicating. Their fear, their surrender, it fed directly into the same current that had empowered him on Carthax. His strength surged. He could feel it clearly now. This galaxy rewarded dominance, even when wrapped in mercy. "Stop," he said again, voice strained. They didn't. One by one, they bowed deeper, offering themselves to judgment. Superman clenched his jaw, muscles trembling as he fought the instinct to accept. "No," he growled. "Get up, fight me, or leave." The lead Inquisitor tilted her head. "Why resist what you are?" That did it. Superman released a shockwave of force, not violent, but overwhelming. It blasted outward, scattering the Inquisitors like leaves in a storm, disrupting their concentration and breaking the feedback loop. He moved instantly, disabling ships, ripping engines free, ensuring none could pursue. When it was over, the silence was deafening. Superman hovered alone, chest heaving. He had won. And it terrified him how easy it had been to almost lose himself. Far away, within the dark halls of an Imperial fortress, a holo projector flickered to life. Darth Vader watched the recorded engagement in silence. Every movement, every hesitation. The Inquisitors knelt, he said quietly. "Yes, my lord," an officer replied nervously. "They believed submission would empower him," Vader finished. He turned away, cape swirling. "This being does not draw power from the Force," Vader said. "He draws power from response." The Emperor's laughter echoed faintly through the chamber. "A fascinating flaw." Vader's fists clenched. "He can be turned." Superman landed on a barren moon hours later, knees sinking into gray dust. He sat there for a long time, staring up at the stars, replaying the moment the Inquisitors knelt. He hadn't wanted to hurt them, but part of him had wanted them to stop existing as a threat. That impulse scared him more than any Sith ever could. On Earth, he was strong because he chose restraint. Here, restraint was a liability the dark side was eager to erase. He rose slowly, resolve hardening. If he stayed reactive, the galaxy would shape him. If he wanted to remain himself, he would have to choose his battles and his distance carefully. Because next time, the Empire wouldn't send hunters. They would send a negotiator. And that conversation would be far more dangerous than any lightsaber. The Rebel Alliance learned about Superman the same way it learned about most things, too late, through fragments and filtered by fear. A courier ship limped into a hidden rendezvous point near the Ison corridor, its hull scarred and its astromech half melted from ion damage. The pilot collapsed the moment the ramp dropped, babbling about a man in the sky who tore through TIE fighters without a ship, without weapons, without hesitation. Most dismissed it as stress. until similar reports followed. A prison transport disabled with no casualties. An Imperial convoy scattered by something that moved faster than sensors could lock. Entire slave camps emptied overnight, their guards left alive but shaken, claiming judgment had looked them in the eye. Within days, the rumors reached the Alliance High Command. They argued immediately. "He's a weapon," one general insisted, pacing the briefing room. A single being capable of drawing that much Imperial attention could doom entire cells if the Empire follows him. "He's hope," another countered. "People are talking. Systems that haven't whispered rebellion in years are looking up again." Mon Mothma listened in silence, fingers steepled, eyes distant. "Hope without control becomes fear," she said finally. "And fear is the Emperor's currency." Leia Organa stood nearby, arms crossed. She had felt it too, not through the Force, but through instinct. Something about the reports unsettled her, not because of the power described, but because of the tone. "This isn't like other heroes," Leia said. "People don't just admire him, they submit to him." The room went quiet. "That's dangerous," Mon Mothma agreed. "For us, and for him." The decision was made reluctantly. They would make contact. Superman sensed the rebel scouts long before they revealed themselves. He had taken refuge on a remote forest world, one with a single yellow-white sun close enough to provide marginally better energy absorption. He moved slowly here, conserving strength, helping where he could without drawing fleets in his wake. When the scout ship finally landed nearby, he was already waiting in a clearing, standing openly among towering trees and drifting pollen. Leia stepped down the ramp herself. She froze when she saw him, not in fear, but surprise. He looked nothing like the myth. No armor, no weapons. Just a man, tall and calm, eyes steady with something she hadn't seen in years. Unburdened resolve. "You came alone," Superman said gently. Leia raised an eyebrow. "So did you." They studied each other in silence. Finally, she nodded. "I'm Leia Organa. We represent a resistance." "I know who you are," he replied. "Your transmissions reach farther than you think." That surprised her. They talked. Not politics at first, not strategy. They spoke of worlds crushed under Imperial rule, of choices made under impossible pressure. Superman listened more than he spoke, absorbing the weight of a war that had been burning long before he arrived. "You could end it," Leia said eventually. "You know that, don't you?" Superman looked away, gaze drifting to the sunlit canopy above. "I could end battles," he said carefully. "Ending a war is different. With you," she pressed, "we could take Coruscant, destroy the Death Star before it's ever fully operational, save billions." The pressure stirred. Superman felt it like a held breath. "And what happens the day after?" he asked. "When the galaxy realizes it traded one unstoppable force for another?" Leia frowned. "You wouldn't rule." "I wouldn't intend to," he replied. "That's never stopped it from happening." She studied him more closely now. "You're afraid of what you might become." He met her gaze. "I'm afraid of what this galaxy would ask me to be." Their conversation was interrupted by alarms. Imperial ships dropped from hyperspace without warning, too close, too precise. "They followed us," Leia whispered. Superman's jaw tightened. He could sense the fear spike not just in the rebels, but in himself. The pressure surged eagerly. "I'll draw them away," he said. Leia grabbed his arm. "If you do this alone, they'll never stop hunting you." He looked down at her hand, then back to the sky. "They won't stop anyway." He took off a crimson and blue streak tearing through the clouds. The battle that followed was brief and devastating. Superman moved like a living missile, disabling Star Destroyer turrets, tearing through squadrons with controlled strikes. He avoided killing when he could, but each choice cost time, energy, focus. Imperial reinforcements kept coming. He felt himself tiring, and then one turbolaser shot clipped him. Pain flared sharp and undeniable. The pressure exploded. Anger surged. Fear followed, not for himself, but for the rebels scrambling to escape below. Superman stopped holding back. He ripped through the destroyer's hull, crushing reactor conduits, forcing a catastrophic shutdown. He hurled the ship aside, clearing the skies in seconds. Silence followed. The rebels escaped. Superman hovered alone amid drifting wreckage, chest heaving. He had crossed a line. Not because he destroyed a ship, but because of how easy it had felt when he let the anger in. Back on the Forest world, Leia watched the sky darken with falling debris. She knew then. The rebels didn't need him. They needed him to stay away. When Superman returned hours later, exhausted but resolute, the clearing was empty. Only a single message remained, encoded into a portable hollow emitter. Is greater than. You gave us time. That's more than enough. But if you stay close, the Empire will burn everything to get to you. We can't afford to become collateral in a war between gods. Leia. Superman closed his eyes. For the first time since arriving in this galaxy, he felt truly alone. The Empire saw him as a prize. The dark side saw him as potential. And the rebels, those he most wanted to help, had chosen distance over salvation. He lifted into the sky once more, unsure where he belonged. Somewhere far away, the Emperor smiled. Isolation was always the first step. Isolation was not silence. Superman learned that quickly. As he traveled farther from known hyperspace lanes, skirting dead systems and uninhabited worlds, the galaxy grew louder in ways he hadn't anticipated. Not with voices or engines, but with emotion. Fear drifted between stars like radiation. Anger burned hot and constant, concentrated around Imperial strongholds. Desperation clung to refugee worlds so thickly it felt almost breathable. And beneath it all, the same undercurrent pulsed. The Force. He didn't understand it, not truly. He could sense it the way a swimmer sensed tides, pressure, flow, resistance, but it did not answer him the way it did the Jedi or the Sith. It didn't guide him. It reacted to him. That difference mattered. He discovered the truth on a forgotten moon orbiting a dying red star. The moon had once hosted a research facility, Imperial. Judging by the shattered insignia and scorched Durasteel corridors, now it was a ruin, stripped bare by scavengers and abandoned by everyone else. Superman had come here for the star. Red suns weren't ideal, but they were something, and after weeks of careful restraint, his reserves were low. He hovered near the surface, absorbing what energy he could. When the distress call reached his hearing, it wasn't Imperial. It was a transport civilian being hunted. Superman turned instantly, tracking the sound through vacuum and static. A battered freighter screamed past the moon's far side, engines failing, pursued by two sleek attack craft bearing the sigil of a pirate syndicate that thrived in Imperial blind spots. He intercepted them seconds later. The first pirate ship exploded not from impact, but from Superman ripping its engine free and hurling it into space. He caught the second before its pilot could eject, crushing its weapons array and forcing it to drift powerless. He didn't feel satisfaction. He felt relief. The freighter limped to a stop nearby. Its captain, a middle-aged woman with haunted eyes, opened a channel, gratitude spilling over into disbelief. "You saved us," she said. "They were going to take the children." Superman nodded. "You're safe now." He escorted them to the moon's surface, helping with repairs, carrying supplies with careful gentleness. The refugees watched him with the same mixture of awe and fear he'd seen everywhere else. Then the pirates' reinforcements arrived. 5 ships this time. Superman felt the shift immediately. The pressure returned stronger than it had ever been. Not coaxing, not whispering, demanding. End it. The pirates opened fire. Superman moved. What followed was not a battle. It was an execution narrowly avoided. He flew through the formation faster than sensors could react, tearing weapons from hulls, ripping cockpits open, forcing surrenders through sheer inevitability. Blaster fire bounced harmlessly from his skin. Missiles detonated against him in bursts of flame and shrapnel. He could have destroyed them all in seconds. Instead, he dismantled them piece by piece. And with every decisive action, the pressure rewarded him. His strength surged. His reactions sharpened. Pain faded into irrelevance. For the first time since arriving in this galaxy, he felt close to whole. When it was over, the pirates' ships drifted disabled in space. Their crews surrendered immediately, kneeling on their decks, hands raised. The refugees cheered. Superman hovered above the wreckage, breathing hard not from exertion, but from something else. Clarity. The truth crystallized in his mind with terrifying simplicity. The dark side didn't need him to hate. It needed him to decide. Efficiency over doubt. Resolution over restraint. The moment he stopped questioning himself, the galaxy empowered him. Superman landed heavily on the moon's surface, boots cracking stone. He turned away from the kneeling pirates, from the refugees, from the star blazing weakly overhead. "No," he whispered. But the word felt thin. Elsewhere, Darth Vader stood before the Emperor's hologram, the image of the pirate engagement playing silently between them. He adapts, the Emperor said, voice smooth with amusement, faster than expected. He resists, Vader replied. For now, the Emperor purred, but he is learning the same lesson all great rulers learn. Vader said nothing. He does not fall because he is tempted, the Emperor continued. He will fall because he is effective. Vader's fists clenched. Superman left the moon without another word. Days passed, then weeks. He avoided populated systems, intervening only when suffering became impossible to ignore. Each time, the pattern repeated. Restraint weakened him. Decisiveness strengthened him. He began to notice something else, too. The galaxy reacted faster now. Imperial patrols altered routes before he arrived. Pirate syndicates abandoned operations the moment rumors spread. Entire systems went quiet when whispers of a red and blue figure reached them. Fear followed him. Not just of the Empire, but of him. That realization hit hardest on a barren colony world where he arrived too late. The settlement had already burned. Bodies lay scattered among ruined hablocks, the smell of ionized air and charred flesh hanging heavy. Imperial troopers were gone, leaving behind only silence and survivors too shocked to speak. Superman knelt among the dead, fists trembling. If he'd arrived sooner? The pressure surged violently. You could have. The thought wasn't cruel. It was factual. Superman screamed, a sound that cracked stone and sent shockwaves rippling across the ruins. He rose into the air, eyes blazing faintly, not with heat vision, but something deeper. For one terrifying moment, he considered it. Destroying the next Imperial fleet he found. Ending the war through overwhelming force. Becoming what this galaxy clearly needed. The pressure roared approval, and then he remembered Earth. Not the battles. The people. The quiet moments. The belief that power existed to serve, not to decide who deserved to exist. He clenched his fists and forced the energy down, grounding himself through sheer will. No, he said aloud. I don't win by becoming you. The pressure receded, but it did not vanish. It waited. Somewhere in the darkness, Darth Vader felt the tremor of that choice and smiled beneath his mask. Resistance meant inevitability, and inevitability was the dark side's greatest ally. Darth Vader did not rush to meet Superman. That restraint puzzled the Emperor's advisors and unsettled the remaining Inquisitors, but Vader understood something they did not. Power like this did not bend under threat. It bent under recognition. So, instead of hunters, he sent an invitation. Superman received it while standing at the edge of a shattered moon, watching debris drift slowly into a nearby gravity well. He had chosen this place deliberately, far from civilian traffic, far from strategic value, a place where no one would suffer if the Empire came for him. The shuttle emerged from hyperspace without escorts. That alone set his instincts on edge. The vessel was sleek and black, its design unmistakably imperial but stripped of ostentation. It approached at a measured pace, weapons powered down, comm channels open. A single message repeated calmly, "Is greater than you are invited to speak." Superman didn't move. The pressure stirred, not violently this time, but with anticipation. The dark side was listening closely now. The shuttle landed on the moon's fractured surface, landing struts adjusting to uneven terrain. The ramp lowered with a hydraulic hiss. Darth Vader stepped out. Even without the Force, Superman would have known this was someone different. Vader's presence was heavy, not loud, not aggressive, but absolute. Every step felt deliberate, as though the environment itself had been informed in advance that resistance was futile. His armor reflected the distant starlight in cold, distorted angles, and his mechanical breathing echoed across the open space like a metronome counting down something inevitable. They stood facing one another across 50 meters of broken stone. Vader did not ignite his lightsaber. "Your restraint is inefficient," Vader said, voice resonating through his mask. "But admirable." Superman folded his arms slowly. "You're the one responsible for this empire." "Yes," Vader replied without hesitation. "You enslave worlds, exterminate dissent, hunt children because they might threaten your power." Vader tilted his head slightly. "I maintain order." Superman's jaw tightened. At the cost of everything that makes life worth protecting. Vader took a step forward, then another. He stopped just short of Superman's reach. "You misunderstand," Vader said. "I did the same once." That caught Superman off guard. "You were like me," Vader continued. "Power without allegiance, belief without structure. And like you, I believed restraint made me virtuous. The pressure surged subtly, threading itself between them. Superman felt it then, not temptation, but understanding. Vader wasn't lying. Whatever else he was, this was a man who had once stood at a similar crossroads. "What do you want?" Superman asked. Vader turned slightly, gesturing toward the stars. "The galaxy is broken. It has been for generations. You have seen this. You feel it every time you hesitate." Superman said nothing. "You intervene selectively," Vader went on. "You save those you can reach, and millions still die beyond your hearing. That doesn't justify tyranny." "No," Vader agreed. "It justifies ending chaos." The pressure deepened, not from Vader but from the galaxy itself, responding to the words spoken aloud. "You could dismantle the rebellion in days," Vader said calmly. "End their suffering. End the Emperor's need for fear. End the war." Superman laughed bitterly. "You think I'd help you crush the only people still fighting for freedom?" Vader turned back to him. "Freedom without stability is merely delayed collapse. You're asking me to become an enforcer. I'm asking you to become decisive." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Superman asked the question that had been haunting him since Carthax. "Why hasn't the Force consumed me?" he asked. "Why does it reward me when I act, but not control me?" Vader studied him. "Because you are not bound to it," he said. "You are adjacent. You exist outside its design. That makes you dangerous." "And valuable," Superman said. "Yes." Vader stepped closer. Close enough that Superman could hear the subtle variations in his breathing, sense the damage beneath the armor. "You do not need to submit to the dark side," Vader said. "You only need to use it." The pressure roared. Superman felt it vividly now, the promise of clarity, of ending suffering efficiently. No endless skirmishes, no collateral wars, just decisive action. He could tear down the Emperor, replace him, force peace through absolute deterrence. For one terrifying heartbeat, the idea made sense. Then Superman looked at Vader. "What happened to you?" he asked quietly. Vader's helmet angled downward. "I chose," he said. Superman nodded slowly. "And you lost." Vader's hand twitched, but he did not attack. "You believe yourself incorruptible," Vader said, "but you are already changing." Superman exhaled. "I know." He stepped back. "I won't be your weapon," Superman said, "and I won't be your ruler." Vader regarded him for a long moment. "Then you will force my hand." Superman's eyes hardened. "I already have." Vader ignited his lightsaber. The red blade hissed to life, bathing the fractured moon in crimson light. Superman did not move. The pressure surged violently, eager, hungry. Vader struck. The clash was instantaneous. Superman caught the lightsaber blade with his bare hand. Energy screamed as plasma met invulnerable flesh. Heat washed over his skin, painful but not catastrophic. The shockwave from the impact cracked the ground beneath them, sending debris flying outward. Vader staggered back, stunned. Impossible. Superman released the blade and moved not with rage, but resolve. He struck Vader squarely in the chest, launching him across the moon's surface. Vader rolled, force-enhanced reflexes saving him from pulverization. He rose again, blade raised, anger flaring. "You denied destiny," Vader snarled. "I deny your version of it," Superman replied. They clashed again, strength against precision, raw power against honed fury. The Force crashed against Superman in waves, but he pushed through it, adapting, compensating. Each strike from Vader grew more desperate. Each counter from Superman grew heavier. And with every decisive blow, the dark side fed him. Superman felt it clearly now. He could end this. He disarmed Vader with a single motion, sending the lightsaber spinning into the void. Vader dropped to one knee, one mechanical hand braced against the ground. The pressure screamed, "Finish it!" Superman hovered above him, fists trembling. This was the moment. Kill Vader. Break the Empire's spine. Change everything. He lowered his fists. "No," he said softly. Vader looked up, something like disbelief flickering behind his lenses. Superman turned away. "I won't win your war by becoming its end." He flew into the stars, leaving Vader kneeling alone on the broken moon. Far away, the Emperor felt the rupture and laughed. Resistance was gone. Only inevitability remained. The galaxy did not celebrate Superman's refusal. It adjusted. In the days following his encounter with Darth Vader, The Empire shifted tactics with chilling precision. Fleets stopped chasing him directly. Bounties quietly disappeared from public channels. Instead, suffering spiked in places he had already touched. Slave camps reopened worse than before. Refugee corridors collapsed under sudden Imperial blockades. Worlds he had saved were punished for believing in him. Superman noticed the pattern almost immediately. It wasn't subtle. The message was clear. Every time you choose restraint, others pay the price. He hovered above a smuggler moon turned refugee haven, watching Imperial transports descend like carrion birds. Stormtroopers poured out, methodical and efficient, hurting civilians with practiced cruelty. The locals looked skyward, hope flaring briefly when they saw him, then dying when he did not intervene immediately. The pressure surged. Not eager. Accusatory. Superman clenched his jaw. He could stop this. One decisive act. One overwhelming display. The Empire would learn to fear crossing any world under his shadow. He descended. The first transport exploded mid-air, not violently, but catastrophically precise. Superman ripped its engines free and hurled them into space, sending the vessel crashing harmlessly into the sea beyond the city. Panic rippled through the Imperial ranks. He moved fast, disarming, disabling, tearing weapons from hands and crushing armor joints without killing. Troopers scattered, some firing wildly, others dropping to their knees. And with every act of dominance, the pressure rewarded him. The second transport tried to flee. Superman caught it effortlessly. For a split second, his grip tightened just a fraction too much. The hull buckled. Screams echoed through the deck. He released it instantly, heart pounding, horror flashing through him as the transport limped away, trailing smoke. The city was saved. But Superman barely noticed the cheers. He stared at his hands. The rebels felt the shift too. Cells began reporting something new. Imperial forces retreating preemptively from worlds. Superman approached. Others doubling down, daring him to intervene so they could justify mass retaliation elsewhere. Leia Organa read the reports with growing dread. "He's being maneuvered," she said quietly. Mon Mothma nodded. "They're turning him into a deterrent." "And deterrents eventually stop caring who they scare," Leia replied. They tried to warn him. Encrypted messages were sent, warnings, pleas, strategy briefings. Superman received them all. He didn't answer. Because the truth was harder to admit than silence. He was losing the argument inside himself. The breaking point came on Vandor's Reach, a mid-rim trade world, strategically insignificant but densely populated. The Empire announced a public execution, 300 civilians accused of collaboration with an unidentified hostile entity. Superman heard the broadcast from half a system away. He arrived in seconds. The city square was packed. Stormtroopers stood in perfect formation. A towering Imperial officer read charges aloud, voice amplified across the plaza. Superman landed in full view. The crowd erupted. Hope, fear, worship. The officer didn't flinch. "Behold," he called out, "the architect of your suffering." The pressure surged violently. Superman stepped forward. "Release them." The officer smiled thinly. Or, Superman felt it, then absolute certainty, the knowledge that he could end this now, not just here, but everywhere. If he killed the officer, if he crushed the garrison, if he stopped pretending restraint mattered in a galaxy that punished it. The pressure roared approval. He looked at the prisoners, then at the crowd, then at the Imperial banners snapping overhead. "Let them go," he said again, voice steady but strained. The officer raised a hand. Blasters leveled. Superman moved. What followed was not a fight. It was domination. He tore through the garrison in seconds, disarming, disabling, incapacitating with brutal efficiency. He ripped the execution platform apart, shielding the prisoners from stray fire. And when the officer tried to flee, Superman caught him, lifted him into the air. The pressure screamed. The crowd watched in silence. This was the moment the galaxy would remember. The officer struggled, choking. "You can't," he gasped. "You won't." Superman's grip tightened. Just enough. Enough to silence him forever. The pressure exploded into euphoria. And then he saw it. Not through vision, but awareness. A future where fear followed him instead of hope. Where worlds complied not because they believed in justice, but because he might come. Superman released the officer. He fell, unconscious, alive. Superman turned to the crowd. "I won't rule you," he said loudly, "and I won't kill for compliance." Some cheered. Others looked disappointed. That hurt more than any blaster ever could. The Emperor watched the scene unfold through force-scried vision, fingers steepled. "So close," he murmured. Vader stood beside him, silent. "He denies the final step," the Emperor said, "but he has already accepted the path." Vader said nothing. "He will come to me," the Emperor continued. "Not because he desires power, but because he cannot endure consequence." Superman left Vandor's reach shaken. For the first time, he understood the trap fully. If he intervened, the dark side rewarded him and the Empire exploited his presence. If he withdrew, innocence suffered in his absence. There was no clean choice. Only responsibility. He drifted through deep space, staring at unfamiliar constellations, feeling the galaxy press closer around him. He was no longer an outsider. He was a variable the Force itself had begun to account for. And somewhere, in the deepest shadow of Imperial space, a throne awaited a being who refused to kneel but might still sit. The summons did not come through channels. It came through the Force. Superman felt it like a horizon suddenly tilting space itself, leaning toward a single point of impossible gravity. No coordinates were given. None were needed. The pull was absolute, undeniable, threading through every instinct and every doubt he carried. He knew where it led. Coruscant. Not the shining city of 1,000 cultures the archives whispered about, but the world beneath it, the shadows below the spires, where the Emperor ruled from a throne carved into fear itself. Superman arrived without ceremony. No stealth, no announcement. He descended through layers of traffic and atmosphere, past glittering towers and endless lanes of light, until the sky darkened and the air grew heavy with ozone and dread. Imperial defenses screamed warnings that died in static as he passed. Turbo lasers tracked him, hesitated, then powered down. Orders were rescinded before they were spoken. He landed within the Emperor's citadel, boots touching obsidian floors polished smooth by centuries of submission. The doors ahead parted soundlessly. The throne room awaited. It was vast and cold, lit by sickly yellow light filtering through narrow apertures high above. At its center sat a frail figure cloaked in darkness, hands folded calmly, eyes glowing with ancient malice. Emperor Palpatine smiled. "At last," he crooned. "The galaxy's unanswered question stands before me." Superman did not bow. "You engineered this," he said. "The suffering, the pressure. You tried to turn me into a weapon." Palpatine chuckled softly. "Tried? My dear boy. You arrived halfway forged." The pressure surged instantly, stronger than ever before. Not chaotic, focused. The dark side coiled around Superman like a familiar weight, eager and welcoming. "You feel it now," the Emperor continued. "The truth the Jedi never taught. Power is not corruption, it is clarity." Superman clenched his fists. "You mistake dominance for order." Palpatine's eyes flashed. "And you mistake mercy for virtue." The Emperor rose slowly from his throne, the Force crackling around him like static before a storm. "You stand at the apex of choice," Palpatine said. "Kill me, and the Empire fractures into endless war. Join me, and you end suffering permanently." Superman felt it every possible outcome, branching endlessly before him. Civil wars, warlords, death on a scale even he couldn't contain. Or unity, fear-based, absolute, efficient. The dark side sang. Vader stepped from the shadows then, igniting his lightsaber but holding position. "Choose," Vader said quietly, "in this." Superman looked between them. Then he laughed, not bitterly, not in rage, but with sudden, startling clarity. "You're wrong about one thing," Superman said. "Both of you?" Palpatine's smile faltered just slightly. "You think the dark side wins when someone gives in?" Superman continued. "But it wins much earlier when the galaxy convinces you there's only one way to be effective." The pressure surged violently, resisting. Superman stepped forward anyway. "I don't need to rule," he said, "and I don't need to kill you." Palpatine snarled and unleashed the full fury of the dark side. Force lightning erupted far stronger than anything before, wrapping Superman in blinding agony. His muscles locked, his vision burned white. The pressure screamed acceptance. For a heartbeat, he almost did. Then he remembered something the Force could never give him: choice without coercion. Superman absorbed the lightning not by resisting it, but by grounding himself, by refusing to respond with dominance. He let the pain exist witout turning it into action. The pressure fractured. Palpatine staggered back, disbelief twisting his features. Impossible. Superman moved. Not with rage, with purpose. He crossed the chamber in an instant and struck not Palpatine, but the throne itself. The obsidian seat shattered, the conduit amplifying the dark side, collapsing inward on itself. The room screamed. Energy backlashed violently, throwing Vader and Palpatine apart. The Emperor fell, shrieking, his connection disrupted, his controls slipping. Superman stood amid the chaos, power roaring around him but untethered. Vader rose slowly, damaged but standing. "Why?" Vader demanded. "Why deny what you are?" Superman met his gaze. "Because power that must be obeyed isn't justice," he said. "It's fear with better branding." He turned away as alarms blared throughout the Citadel. "I won't replace him," Superman said, "and I won't destroy this world to prove a point." He flew upward, tearing through layers of the city and into open sky as Coruscant reeled beneath him. Behind him, the Empire did not fall, but it cracked. Palpatine survived, but diminished, furious, exposed. Vader watched the sky where Superman vanished, something unspoken, shifting deep within him. For the first time in decades, the dark side had been refused, not through weakness, but through mastery. And the galaxy felt it. The galaxy did not collapse when Superman left Coruscant. That, more than anything, changed everything. For centuries, power in this galaxy had obeyed a single rule: remove the tyrant, and the vacuum devours millions. The Jedi had fallen, believing they could not intervene without becoming generals. The Sith ruled, believing fear was the only glue strong enough to hold civilization together. Superman proved a third truth. The Empire staggered. Palpatine survived the destruction of his throne, but the backlash crippled more than his body. His grip on the Force, once a seamless web of domination, fractured. Not broken, but no longer absolute. Regional governors felt it first. Orders arrived late. Punishments lost their terrifying precision. The fear that once radiated from Coruscant now arrived diluted, uncertain. The Empire still ruled, but it hesitated. That hesitation spread. Across mid-rim worlds, Moffs delayed crackdowns, wary of provoking a being who had shattered the Emperor's sanctum and walked away. Star Destroyer captains rerouted patrols rather than risk becoming examples. The myth of invincibility, Imperial and Sith alike, had been punctured. Not destroyed, just enough. The rebels noticed immediately. Cells reported unprecedented successes. Not victories won by Superman's presence, but by Imperial restraint. Supply lines went untouched. Executions were postponed. Entire systems slipped quietly into non-compliance, testing boundaries that suddenly felt negotiable. Leia Organa stood on the bridge of a hidden cruiser, staring at tactical maps that no longer made sense. "He didn't win the war," a general said quietly. Leia nodded. No. She felt it now, subtle but unmistakable. The same shift Superman must have felt when he broke the throne. He changed the rules. Superman watched from afar. He kept his distance deliberately, orbiting stars and worlds where his presence would not become leverage. He intervened only in disasters. No one else could stop collapsing moons, reactor meltdowns, asteroid impacts that would have erased entire populations. When he acted cleanly. No speeches, no judgment, no domination. And something extraordinary happened. The pressure weakened, not vanished, but no longer demanding. The dark side still reacted to him, but it no longer dictated. By refusing to let consequence or efficiency define his worth, Superman changed how the galaxy responded to him. Fear receded. Not everywhere, but enough. The criminal syndicates adapted next. Hutts issued bounties they quietly hoped would never be collected. Slavers abandoned routes rumored to fall under the Watcher's shadow. Bounty hunters began choosing targets more carefully, not because Superman hunted them, but because the galaxy itself had learned restraint could exist without enforcement. Even the Force shifted. Jedi in hiding, those few who still survived, felt something new when they reached out. Not hope, not light. Space. Room to breathe. On a storm-racked moon, Darth Vader stood alone, gazing into endless clouds. The Emperor's rage echoed faintly through the Force, furious and impotent, unable to fully reclaim what had been lost. "You let him leave," Palpatine hissed across the void. Vader said nothing. "You could have ended him." "Yes," Vader replied at last, "and lost everything." Silence followed. Vader closed his fist slowly. For the first time since Mustafar, the dark side did not answer immediately. Superman returned to the forest world where Leia had first spoken to him. Not to meet her, just to stand among the trees. The sun here, yellow-white, familiar enough, bathed him in steady warmth. His strength felt stable now, balanced, not amplified by anger, not diminished by restraint. Simply present. He knelt and touched the soil, listening to the life beneath it. In this galaxy, the Force bound all living things together, but Superman had learned something vital. The Force did not define morality. Choice did. He looked up at the stars, no longer searching for a way home. This galaxy needed him not as a god, not as a ruler, not as a weapon, but as proof. Proof that absolute power could refuse absolute authority. Proof that intervention did not require domination. Proof that the dark side's greatest lie, that effectiveness demanded surrender, could be denied. He rose and lifted into the sky, cape trailing gently behind him. Somewhere, a slave chain snapped. Somewhere else, a moth hesitated. Somewhere deeper still, the Force recalculated. The galaxy would never be the same, not because Superman ruled it, but because he didn't. Word count 1,382. Conclusion 200 words. Superman never became a Sith. He never became a Jedi. And he never became Emperor. Instead, he became something the galaxy had never accounted for, a constant reminder that power without restraint is tyranny, and restraint without courage is complicity. The Empire endured, but it weakened. The rebellion fought on, but smarter, bolder, the Force itself adjusted to a being who refused to let it define his choices. Superman remained distant, watchful, deliberate, intervening only when the cost of inaction outweighed the danger of influence. He did not end the war. He made it winnable, and in doing so, he left behind a legacy more dangerous to the dark side than any lightsaber or prophecy. The idea that absolute power could exist without demanding obedience. The Sith would remember him as the threat that walked away. The rebels would remember him as the shield that never ruled. And the galaxy would whisper his name, not in fear, but in possibility. Somewhere between the stars, the Force waited, uncertain, because for the first time, it had encountered something it could not bend. Is greater than, is greater than, is greater than? May the Force be with you. More stories await.